Only 2 episodes left to see if the great golf experiment of online instruction really works. Can we take our 4 volunteers and get them to play better golf only using YouTube? Stick with me and let's find out together. If you do like this video, hit that like and subscribe and share with another struggling golfer as we send proceeds from this channel to the Halo Hood Foundation in Cape Flat, South Africa to get low-income children into golf. But enough of that Donald Duck talk. Let's get ready to see our amateurs. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. First we have Kim. Now Kim, let me just say first of all, I'm looking at this swing over and over here. I see less movement left. I still see the hands getting a little bit too engaged, but it is much better than where I left you off a couple weeks back. Look at that right side of the screen. And if for those of you who've been following us, Kim had an issue getting his left arm high enough, but man, Kim, that is phenomenal. Let me put up, I wanted to show you that just before I put up some lines, but let's put up some lines. All right, lines are up now. Forgive me for these ridiculously wide lines, but Kim, you're about 1.5 inches on my screen, and these lines, for some reason, when I put them at the lower font, they still get big and bulky. So again, you look like a Minecraft character this week, and I apologize. But look at that left side of the screen. What we're going to look at is that right hip brace line is looking pretty good. Top of the swing, we can see the hands now getting well above the head. I wish, though, Kim, you can stop the swing right there. That's plenty for you. As you take that club further back, we can see that club now is pulling you left of your target, and you're still getting that slight lean. However, it is nowhere past parallel. And if we take a look, we're going to look at your shoulder turn. We can see that shoulder turn is almost 90 degrees, and the club is just a bit past 90 degrees. Ideally, if we can back you up to about there, that would be perfect. Now, if you take a look at the weight distribution, you are still leaning slightly left at this top position. So I'd say maybe 55-60% of your weighting is on your left side. Could be because the hips jut out to the right side. So a little bit more turn might help you feel like that upper body gets slightly behind the golf ball. So if you put your golf ball here, you can just see the very top of that golf ball there. We can see the weighting is still kind of stuck on your left side. And you see your spine angle is almost directly straight in line with that golf ball position. At the top of your golf ball position, your spine angle should be kind of leaning away from it slightly. Now, we don't want to lean so much like we do with the driver, but just a little bit more. That should help you get some weight over that right foot, and then you can transfer that weight from the ground up into the target. We see your transition here. We get that lean going left. You're trying to push into that left side, but you see your hip tilt is dramatically pointing down. Now, when your hip tilt's pointing down, that's going to make your spine favor the golf ball. Now, I know we want to get a slight forward lean with our spine striking an iron because we're trying to strike down. However, too much, now we're going to have to start to slide over to get that golf ball. And this is where you start to see that slide occur. And when you slide, you move that golf ball off your right shoulder. You can see the golf ball line is about here. I know we got so many lines going on here, but that's where that arrow, that's where the golf ball line is. So you have to now engage your hands to strike that golf ball. So you still get slightly forward shaft lean right as you strike the golf ball, but much better in terms of what we're working on from 2 weeks ago. So very good job. Right side of the screen, let's take a look at your plane work now. Weighting is much better. You can see your feet are supporting your hips. A lot more room for your arms and hands to go through. Spine angle is looking solid. Arms are hanging down nice and straight. So really, really good here. We take that club back. We see that club goes right through the hands. Man, that is perfect. Look at that left shoulder slightly getting down where it was before. The club head is right on that lower plane line. We get to the top of your swing. We see how high your hands can get now. If for those of you who've been following us, his hands were right about here before. They were really tucked in. So this is a really good job. So if you can stop here, that'd be perfect. But all that does for you, ladies and gentlemen at home, is I'm going to draw this in a green line. Let's change it up a little bit so we don't get so confused. But this gives you some space in between your right elbow and your body. Now, if your right elbow was tucked, your triangle will be very flat. Now, when you have a flat triangle and you're trying to strike down on the golf ball, it becomes very hard to strike down the golf ball and stay connected. By getting your elbows a little bit higher and away from your body, you are now making your triangle pointing down more. So we can see the path of the hands are going to rub into the lower plane line right about here. So we see it as we take that club down. Look at the path of the hands. The path of the hands works straight down towards that X, and they can release it a little bit easier, and his hands are finishing much higher. And look at that secondary plane line. Arms are getting right on top there. We do lose a little bit of spine angle as we come out into the golf ball, but it is less than what I've seen you work on. Next week is basically your last week. You're going to submit your final swing. I'm going to compare your very first swing to the next week's swing, and we're going to look at the before and after. And if you can, do me a favor, write a little summary of how you feel. For your last submission, do me a favor and try and get that weighting slightly right as you take that that club back. And on your downswing, feel like your weighting is traveling more to your heels, specifically your back left heel. That'll help you stay in that brace line, and it should allow your right shoulder to tilt under. We can see your right shoulder still at impact. It is slightly higher than the tilt. You kind of have to stand up because you're crunching yourself. You can't tilt while your body's going into the golf ball. So pull that body back left. That should adjust your tilting naturally, and then get your weighting sorted at the top of your swing to feel more behind the golf ball. That is fantastic. I give this a 8.75 out of 10. And I just made that up, and hopefully this helps you. Wichita, let's see who's next. All right, next up we have Hannis. Hannis, this looks so comforting to be inside doors. I'm assuming it's probably getting a little chillier where you are, or maybe I'm just making up some assumptions, but I don't know what golf course you're playing there, but it looks nice and clean. Great video quality, great angles. Let's take a look. We still got that slight forward shaft lean. You know my big thing about shaft leans. Now, if you take a look where the golf ball is related to your spine tilt, so let's draw your spine tilt here. Let's do 90 degrees from your spine tilt. We can see even with that shaft lean, it's not quite a perfect triangle. So shaft leans are okay if you match up with your golf ball position. So if your shaft lean, in other words, was there, that would be okay because the center of your golf ball is still connected to your chest and you're still forming some sort of triangle. So just do yourself a favor, either put that shaft lean a little bit further ahead but stay connected to your golf ball right triangle, or what you can do is relax the hands and form that line between this big line that I'm going to put up. Make sure the hands are here, the club head is here, and it's all pointing to the center of your power source. Okay, but let's take a look at the face on, and let's take a look what we're working with. We can see a big wide turn, top of the swing, a little bit armsy at the very top. You can see that little disconnection there. And ladies and gentlemen at home, we don't need all of this. Now, keep in mind that most of this is derived from the speed of your backswing. So if you have a fast backswing, that club head is picking up weight and it weighs a lot heavier, and it's going to pull your arms back. So those of us with very quick hand swings typically go a little bit too far. But in terms of your shoulder turn, look at how much shoulder turn you're establishing. Great hip turn. So nice little X factor you're coming up with. And the hands and arms don't go past parallel. All things considered, with that huge shoulder turn for your arms and hands not to go past parallel, this is acceptable. But if you want to try and get to perfect, in my opinion, get those hands to stop right about there, because they get pretty close to matching your shoulder turn, and you can see your body just stops turning and the rest is just hands and arms. So whatever you do here, you're going to have to undo in about 0.2 seconds. That gets timing involved, and sometimes you're able to get away with it, but other times it's going to be a challenge. Top of the swing, let's take a look. We see our left knee beating the left hip to the impact position, which is good. That means there's a lot of rotation, but I'm thinking you're missing a little bit of drive, because we look at that right hip. The right hip is much higher than the left hip, and that's going to cause some issues. You can tell this because your knees are almost straight to each other. There's very little driving going on here, a lot of rotation, but we see an impact right here as you try and make up the drive a little later. So I think for next week, for our final submission, think about the right side really pushing, and if you want a visual, think about your left hip just starting that downswing, bumping that left hip towards the target. That's going to help you drop that right shoulder as well, and we'll see on the right side of the screen how that works. But as you come on into it, you can see here, look at all this extra arm work, and that is because we went a little bit too far back on the way back. As we come on down through, we can see we have established that straight down about midway point, so we have a nice 90-degree angle here. Once you get down a couple frames here, because we have to make up some of that disconnection, this is where you have to reconnect down into impact, and because we're reconnecting and almost sliding back to the left side, you can see how much your left side is over that lower brace line. That's going to move your ball position a little bit further back than it started, and that's where you strike the golf ball. So words of advice, you always find the center at impact. So look at that shaft. The shaft has just made contact, and it is trying to catch up with the center of your chest. So why not just start in the center of your chest to begin with, so you don't have to manipulate the club head all over the place. Let's go to the right side of the screen. What we can see here is plane work. Arms are getting better. They're getting pretty close to that plane. It's closer than it has been. We can see that the club shaft is matching the spine angle, which is good. If your left shoulder dipped down sooner, that would have pushed those hands straight down to that lower plane line. And from here, we can lift on up. So we're trying to lift on up, but you can see that laid off position. It's less laid off than I've seen it before, so it's getting better. But remember, that club head, instead of being on this right hand, the weight, feel like that club head is pointing this way for a change, and feel this hand support the weight. Remember, practice your feelings. Don't practice what is real. If you think you're doing something, you're probably not doing it. If you think you're doing the new motion, you're probably not doing it. You have to put yourself in such an obscure position where it's the complete opposite, and you might be getting close to where we want you to be. But in terms of staying in your posture, you're doing a great job. We come on down through. The hands are trying to drop down naturally, but then all of a sudden, we got this makeup for the hands to come across your chest. You do a relatively good job, though, staying in that plane. And what I think helped you get away with this is look at that weighting. The weight goes to your left foot. You're staying in your brace line, providing more room. So even though we still flip, you can still see that the hands are getting to the secondary plane line as you finish. You're maintaining your posture much better. Your weighting's much better. I would say for your final submission for me is please square away that address and really feel like you are doing the complete opposite at the top of the swing. I know it's going to feel very unusual, but that club needs to be pointing so far right of your target at the top of your swing. You need to feel the weight in your left hand, and I hope that helped you. Wichita number 2. Stay tuned next week, everybody, because we got one more final submission from our 2 other amateurs, and then in 2 weeks' time, we break down the final thing. Is it worth it? Is this a hoopla, tchotchke, snake oil thing that the golf industry is trying to push on you now for online instruction, or does this really work? So for me next week, please submit your overall thoughts on what you thought about this program, and I hope I've been helping you. Other than that, everybody, take care of yourself. See you next time. Fairways and greens.